Hello, welcome back to the channel. Um, I actually just didn't want to waste this makeup, so I decided to come on and give my quick review of Wicked 2, which I'm not really invested in at all, to be honest with you. So yeah, I will say though, it was a lot better than I expected it to be because I almost was just not gonna watch it at all, and then last minute, last week, last week at the last minute, I decided that I needed some, relaxation, entertainment, because I had kind of just been in work mode all week. So I decided to go watch it on a whim in a 4DX theater, which, yeah, I forgot what 4DX meant. Um, and the moment that I walked into the theater, because it was the only showing of Wicked that I could make it to, which was 9 p.m. And so the moment I walked into the theater, I knew that I was screwed because I saw the 4DX seats and I remembered that it's 4DX, meaning they give you, larger than even a 3D experience. That's the idea. So I was like, oh crap, it's going to be really intense because, yeah, those chairs are no joke. They like jostle you around and the wind blows through the theater whenever there's lightning or light flashes in the movie. They do like light flashing in the theater, and it was just not very pleasant for me, I have to say. I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but I was not I did not find the experience enjoyable, although at least Wicked is still at the end of the day a children's movie, so it was not really like overly scary or anything like that. But I was just like I was more in the mood of being kind of like half lulled to sleep by just watching something in a dark room, and instead I was kept very much awake for the entire runtime of how long was it? Like almost 3 hours? Definitely at least 2.5 hours, which was it seemed excessively long. So yeah, coming from someone, this is a review coming from someone who was never particularly interested in the book or the musical. I don't consider myself a devoted fan. In fact, I have always found the characters of Wicked to be quite um unlikable, the vast majority of them. And I find most of them to be undeveloped too, which has always perplexed me because, okay, so Wicked was written originally by Gregory Maguire, right? And it was kind of like very, very glorified fan fiction at the time of the original, of course, Wizard of Oz, which we all know. And I remember back in the day, Gregory Maguire definitely had a moment, and I read a couple of his books actually. I don't, interestingly enough, I always kind of avoided Wicked because, again, I personally was never emotionally invested into the Wizard of Oz story. I just didn't feel it, I didn't find it to be as compelling as any of the other fairy tales that he wrote about. So I think he did a spin off, like a similar type of rewriting or backstory fan fiction type thing with the other a lot of the Grimm's brothers fairy tales, like Snow White, Cinderella. I think I read a bunch of those, although I couldn't tell you anything that happened because, yeah, it's been so long ago by now. This was like back when I was in high school. But I don't know. You'll have to like remind me if you're a super fan or something, if Gregory Maguire was ever really considered like, oh my God, sorry, my lipstick or my lip gloss is doing that gross white thing on the inside. This is a Juicy Tube, you guys. I finally got my Lancome Juicy Tube. Ended up ordering it online because the counter next near to me didn't have any stock left, and I'm a little bit underwhelmed. I won't say disappointed, but it kind of felt slightly short of my expectations. I won't lie. Very, very sticky, which I should own going in because I know that Juicy Tubes were always notorious for being very sticky, but I don't know. For some reason, I thought it would be more like I thought it would be sticky, but I didn't expect it to be gloopy. So you have to be careful with how much you put on. And definitely for me, I don't think I'm going to be putting this over bare lips. So I always make sure I put on some lip balm or another lip product underneath to kind of mitigate the stickiness. But anyway, um back to Wicked. So yeah, I don't know like I don't know if Gregory Maguire was ever considered a really brilliant writer or if he just happened to catch a wave at the time because I remember it was not only him, it was kind of a whole movement back in the day, like all these young adult novels that were spin-offs of classic fairy tales. I remember Ella Enchanted was also one such book. I really liked that book actually. And that was not written by Gregory Maguire. So there were a few authors doing this style of the retelling and the reimagining of the backstories of classic fairy tales, right? So I think the obvious political issues or political allegories that are presented in Wicked, those are pretty clever. I guess like it's a very pointed commentary on society and I guess the direction that um, politics or a society can go in if it's under the regime of fascism or yeah, like if the rulers are after control of the people. And also, it's a commentary on how propaganda is used to control people and how also the masses sometimes don't even like a lot of the masses in Wicked are portrayed as being unable to think for themselves. And at the end of the day, they want to believe or they need to have a scapegoat type of figure to believe in as the embodiment of pure evil in order to contrast against someone like Glinda the Good or Glinda the Great. I don't remember. I think Glinda the Good, right? Like they need a simplified personification of good and evil in order to make sense of their worldview in their heads, or at least this is how the leaders of Oz and even the main characters um, understand it. And I think that part is clever. And also the part about the animals being oppressed and treated as second class citizens is obviously an allegory for discrimination that happens in the real world. So all of that is really clever. And like, I appreciate, I guess, the attempt of making all these allegories to real world issues and like weaving it into this really otherworldly, fantastical story that is connected to a classic story that we all know and love, The Wizard of Oz. So in a way, Gregory Maguire is also kind of doing his own propaganda in a way, like positive propaganda in the sense that he's latching on to the social relevance of Wizard of Oz in order to get his political commentary and messages regarding society out there. But then I don't know. I just have to say, like personally, this is just my personal opinion. I just don't feel even after watching Wicked 2, and watching it in 4DX, I will say I was really impressed by how epic it was. That I will concede that this was a very epic feeling movie. And like obviously the performances were very robust. We're gonna get to the individual performances in a minute, but yeah, like the musical numbers, at least Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, we know that they both have amazing voices, so they brought their A game in terms of that. But I don't know personally, even with all the grandiose production of the movie and as well as the established fan base, the established lore, the original musical that a lot of the original fans were first introduced to the story through. I I have never been able to develop any sort of like deep emotional connection or understanding of any of these characters. I find them all to be incredibly one-sided, incredibly unlikable and unsympathetic. And I don't know, was that on purpose? Maybe. Um, Again, I'm not familiar enough with Gregory Maguire's work to comment, to really like critique in, I guess, a fair way, but I'm just gonna talk about my impressions, right? And this is like, I'm not trying to discount his ability as an author or anything, but from my first impressions as, again, an outsider, someone that has not been part of the original fandom, um, I was not impressed with any of the characters. Like I didn't get the sense that I really, even though we went through their whole origin story, Glinda and Elphaba, in the first movie about how they met at college, I found neither of them to be sympathetic throughout the entire saga. Like Glinda was always an uppity airhead. Oh my god, I have to sneeze. Ah, Glinda was always like a delusional, girl in a bubble, which was represented physically in the second movie as well by that bubble contraption that Madame Morrible made for her. She was always pampered and overprotected, lived in a bubble, and never had to lift a finger in her life, and always praised for her physical beauty as well. Whereas Elphaba, I felt like was almost too self-sacrificing in a way, like too naive, too self-sacrificing. Obviously, you can't blame her for her being enamored with the wizard when she was younger, but the fact that she like kept, I don't know, I felt like she kept falling for it over and over though, even though even after like the first red flags or red flag was already shown to her, like the fact that the wizard could not use any magical powers, or he did not possess any magical ability of his own. I don't remember exactly what was the moment that she discovered that. I think it's when he tricked her to do a spell to give his captured monkeys wings, right? But then I feel like there were a couple of instances she should have known right then and there that he's not shit as a person, because that's what indeed he is at the end of the day. After all, just a normal man, not any type of wizard or sorcerer. But I feel like after the first red flag, she should have known immediately to not trust him, and yet she kept wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know, is that supposed to represent kind of an abusive relationship or something? I can understand that interpretation as well, but something about it just like, okay, it's not just to do with the wizard. It's the fact that Alphaba was mistreated by everyone in her life pretty much except her bear nanny caretaker person in her, I forgot the name, but she was taken care of by a bear, or like help a bear nanny, yeah, helped raise her when she was a child. So I don't know, the fact that she was such a doormat, and then even when she met Glinda, and Glinda's first inclination was to actually bully her and humiliate her at the ball, but then once she saw Elphaba crying, she was able to kind of like turn it around. And I didn't like the fact that Glinda didn't have to take responsibility that first time, when that they were at the ball, because as far as I interpreted it, she never actually came clean to Elphaba about the fact that she gave the black witch hat to her as a joke. Like she kind of just got away scot free, even though initially she had malicious intentions to make Elphaba a laughing stock, right? Like she told Elphaba that the hat looked really good on her, but as a malicious tactic to, lure her to the Ozball or the dust ball. I don't even know what it's called. And then like her intention all along was for when Elphaba arrived for everyone to look at her outfit and laugh and ridicule her. But then when they didn't, because there was that poignant moment where Elphaba did her little dance and everyone was kind of like in awe and reflecting on their own actions or their preconceived notions about her. That's when Glinda herself also, like, it hit her and she realized like, oh my god, what have I done? Or I don't want to be this kind of person. And she steps into as an actual friend, um to help Elphaba dance. I don't know, like, it's so stupid. I don't like these characters. I don't understand them. Like, why do people like these characters? Do you find anything redeeming about anyone in this story? Like, even okay, I'm trying to think. Okay, before we go into any further, maybe let's switch gears a little bit. So I have to say, with regards to the performances, I might have a very unpopular opinion, and I want us to put aside all of our opinions and all the discourse on this particular actor in particular, as well as, well, if we're gonna talk about him, we need to talk about Ariana Grande as well, them too, what they are doing right now. But I have to call a spade, okay? I believe, and this could be a very controversial opinion, you don't have to agree with me, but I believe the strongest performance, hands down, in Wicked 2 was Ethan Slater as Bach, who later became, spoiler alert, the Tin Man. Like, I was shook. I was not ready for the level of depth and range that Ethan Slater gave us in just those few short scenes that he was put into Wicked 2 for as Bach. And I believe that, like, I was left wanting to see more of Bach's arc on screen. I feel like I didn't get enough of Ethan Slater's performance as the Tin Man. It was so good. Like, his transformation, I did not even recognize him, which could be in part due to the Tin Man ridiculous silver makeup that they put all over him. But he completely like melted into that role when he became the Tin Man. When you see him transform from this like timid little munchkin who has kind of just resigned himself to his fate as being Nessa Rose's bitch, essentially, to this like creature, this heartless creature, right? Because he's a Tin Man now, so he doesn't have a heart. And he's kind of been like split. His consciousness or his being has kind of been forever fractured because of the spell that Alphaba cast on him. And you see him switch into this personification of like like incel rage almost. Because remember that he was always in love with Glinda ever since their college days together. But since Glinda never gave him the time of day, and if I recall, she could not even remember to say his name correctly, even though it's a fairly simple name, Bach, but she kept calling him something else in the first movie, which I think was just to signify to us that she was not really aware of his existence. I don't think it was to be mean necessarily, but yeah, to turn from like that love struck, meek, obedient munchkin that was resigned to his fate and never really was able to stand up for himself or go after what he really wanted, to see him change from that to this purely hateful creature that is just out for revenge when he was leading that march or like the angry crowd rampage against Elphaba in the second half of the film. And then when he like locks eyes with Glinda in her tower, and she's still at this point. So I think this scene can obviously be interpreted in many ways, but that scene where he is after he declares that he's gonna like kill the Wicked Witch of the West, Elphaba, because of what she did to him, he lifts his eyes and he sees like Glinda is watching this whole thing unfold before her, on the street in horror. And I feel like they almost don't recognize each other. Like she sees right through him, but or maybe she's just looking at him and the whole spectacle, like, wow, who are these, um, these terrifying people? Or yeah, like, um, I'm sure she has her own internal conflict that she's going through. That they're all obviously on a witch hunt for Elphaba, believing her to be wicked and to be the cause of all their problems. Meanwhile, Glinda is harboring all this guilt inside because she knows that she herself was complicit in the whole plan to cast Elphaba as the villain and cast herself as the innocent light heroine, although deep inside she knows that she is culpable. Culpable, is that a word? She's also responsible, right, for the way that this twisted narrative and this propaganda is playing out. But yeah, that moment where their eyes meet and like you can't really tell, okay, do they recognize each other? Do they not? Like, is Bach so far gone that he doesn't even recognize Glinda anymore? Or does he hate her now? Because now he knows for sure that he's never gonna have her, right? Because like back when he was a munchkin, although as slim as the chances were, he was still going to shoot. He finally worked up the courage to go shoot his shot at Glinda after learning that she and Fiero were going to be wed soon, and he was gonna crash the wedding and confess his love for her. But I feel like if that scenario had played out, like if he wasn't turned into a Tin Man, well, first of all, it would be like a huge embarrassment, I guess, for Glinda, and maybe she would get really mad at him at the wedding. But at least I think in that scenario, he would have been able to live down the rest of his life knowing that he shot his shot, even if she rejected him or even hated him for ruining her wedding. But now, after he's been turned into the Tin Man, which is an irreversible spell, because every single spell from the Grimoire is irreversible, right? So because of that, because he's now the Tin Man, he knows that for sure. Like he never even got. There's zero chance now. There's like negative chance with Glinda. So yeah, you can read a lot into his expression in that one scene. You can see it. You can take it as, okay, well, if I can't have you, then I'm just. This is what I am now. The only thing that's left of me is this pure hatred, and the adrenaline coursing through my veins as a result of this hatred that I have for the Wicked Witch of the West. And now you are also like even Glinda, the one woman in his life or the one like fantasy that he held on to is now that glimmer of hope is gone as well. So like yes, I was feeling all the feels, okay, during box scenes, which were so short and so few and far between. But I understand because like obviously the main characters are Alphaba and Glinda. Yeah, so and like even though okay, obviously they did a great job and they're both great singers, but I don't know, compared to I'm sorry, I think Bach was or Ethan Slater's performance was the best. Like Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, I'm sorry, they don't even come a close second to Ethan Slater's performance as far as of the acting. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, I mean, great gowns, beautiful gowns. That's what I was thinking in my head. Madame Morrible, even more so. Like Michelle Yeoh as Madame Morrible, I don't know, she irritated me somewhat as well. But I like the fact that I guess I don't mind Michelle Yeoh as Madame Morrible. You know what? She did a really good job of conveying this really quiet, seething hatred that she had towards Glinda. Because every time you see her and Ariana in a scene together, she's just looking at Madame Morrible is just looking at Glinda with this look of pure hatred in her eyes, like pure condescension and disgust. And it's all very subtle. You can just tell, like, the way that she looks at Glinda, the way she regards her is extremely, it's almost like Glinda is just this annoying little bug that she wants to crush, but she can't, right? Because she needs her to play her role in her and the wizard's machinations. So yeah, but Michelle Yeoh can't sing, as everyone has already aptly pointed out. Although I didn't think, I mean, if people didn't make a big deal of it, I wouldn't have thought twice because it's not like she has a huge singing role anyway. She kind of just sings her way through her parts, and they obviously didn't give her anything rigorous. Because I think Michelle Yeoh herself tried to reject the role several times, and one of the reasons being that she really cannot sing, but John Chu insisted, which I kind of understand because like John Chu is Asian and Michelle Yeoh is an Asian acting legend. So I don't really blame John Chu for insisting to work with Michelle Yeoh because you never know the next time a huge blockbuster opportunity like this is going to come your way as a director, right? Although I'm sure John Chu now is going to have more of his pick of the cream of the crop when it comes to upcoming projects. Speaking of John Chu, though, as the director, I'm sorry, like I don't think this film was well directed. I don't know, like it bored me. Okay, so I don't know. Again, is that because of the source material or is it just the directing choices, the pacing choices that they made with this movie? Because I did not enjoy the songs. I felt like they were singing far too often, even though it's a musical. But I was expecting, even when I hear musical, I'm expecting like 60% songs and 40% dialogue, right? But this was more 80-20 to me. That's how it felt. And I didn't even like, I don't know, um, like Glinda's songs were boring AF. Elphaba songs were pretty epic, like especially the one where she's trying to save Fiero as he's being beaten up by the guards. That was a pretty powerful scene. But yeah, Glinda really bored me when she sang. Also, I don't understand the three-way between Glinda, Fiero, and Elphaba. I feel like you can tell when it comes to the male-female relationships in this book, you can tell it's written by a man who has no idea how women think in terms of like their how they approach or think about or regard relationships because I feel like in real life this would be a really really weird situation that is kind of unforgivable, right? Like two best friends fighting over the same guy and then one of them manages to marry him but then it turns out he was secretly in love with the other one all along and he runs away with her when she comes back to the city on the night of their wedding to try to free, you know, all the animals from the Wizard of Oz. I don't think that's like it sounds like a male's oversimplified stupid understanding of how complicated female friendships are cuz like in real life, no, Glinda and Elphaba would not just continue to be besties after that, which yeah, like eventually they had to split up, right? Because of their opposing, you know, their positions in this whole political sphere of the city of Oz were directly opposing. So therefore they had to like even though it broke their heart, they had to physically split up and bid each other goodbye. Although I have a feeling that they might be coming out with a Wicked 3. Honestly, I would like to see a Wicked 3 because I didn't feel satisfied at all with the ending of this one. Although I'm not sure that, again, I don't know if that's the point of the book in the first place. I don't know that we're supposed to feel like things are necessarily resolved. Um, but yeah, like I don't, the fact that in the end, Glinda was kind of just like, oh, okay, you know what? I accept it. Like I knew all along that Fiero was in love with you, Elphaba, and you know what? You two go off and be free and just be safe. Like don't get yourselves killed. I don't know. I don't buy that all of a sudden she's just okay with her sister and former roommate, former bestie running off with her man like that. Like even though she herself she may be done with the man because he after all is the one that cheated on her. That's the other thing like Fiero is also not redeeming to me. I don't why are we supposed to idolize Fiero or clap for him because he also like in a sense him and Bach were similar in their inaction for the majority of the story. Like Bach could not bring himself to stand up to and leave Nessa Rose the same way that Fiero could not really bring himself to stand up to Glinda and like tell her that he didn't want to be get married because she sprang that surprise engagement on him, which was also really weird. Like I don't know, you can't just spring a surprise engagement on someone and then they go along with it, especially not a woman to a man. Like, do you see what I mean? The relationships development in these movies are just really weird and not realistic to me. I don't buy it at all. Like I don't know. I don't have any way of relating to it emotionally because I'm just like this would never happen in real life or it would never go down this way. These scenarios like yes, they could happen, right? Of course you can have a love triangle is a love triangle is a very common trope used in many different stories throughout history, but the way that it just all resolved itself in a pretty bow did not sit well with me. And the fact that like when Fiero decided to run away with Elphaba and immediately she's like, okay, well, you know, I always wanted to be with you. I was always in love with you anyway. So, okay, let's sleep together for one night and just give me like I just want to have this one night with you and I'll cherish it forever. I'm like, again, why does Elphaba not have more respect for herself? Like why is she simping for Fiero after all these years? even though he already chose his fate by agreeing to marry Glinda and not protesting when she sprang that surprise engagement on him. So if like why is Elphaba not more respecting of herself? She can find another man. What? Fiyero is the only eligible bachelor in all of Oz? I don't think so. And plus Elphaba was always planning on, or like, well, no, Elphaba was the one that wanted to stay in Oz. She was trying to convince the animals to stay and fight for their home. And then she was the one kind of like warning them of the dangers of what was beyond Oz, which could also be commentary on, like, I don't want to say xenophobia, but yeah, like a fear of the outside, a fear of other foreign lands, which is also a problematic thing. So none of these characters are 100% good or 100% evil. That part I get, but like that doesn't mean that they should be as unlikable as they are to me and as one dimensional, right? Because I still don't like, to this day, I don't feel any. I cannot relate to any one of the characters, and not even from a third person perspective, because I feel like they didn't have that much development in their backstories to begin with. Also, again, so yeah, like Nessa Rose, for example, why is Nessa Rose such a horrible person? I don't understand. Because in the first movie, um, she wasn't that bad during their college student era. Like, it was established that, okay, so she was disabled, right? I don't know. Is that because my memory's failing me right now, but is that because of a accident that happened when they were younger, and then Elphaba tried to save her, as Elphaba always tries to jump in and save people, but she couldn't get there in time, or she couldn't cast the spell, or whatever that was necessary, so Nessa Rose became disabled. But in any case, whether disabled or not, Nessa Rose was always the favorite of her father, their father, right? Because I think their father knew, probably deep down, that Elphaba was not fathered by him. Wait, did I say Elphaba? I meant Nessa Rose. Wait, okay, let me start over. So, like, regardless of whether Nessa Rose was disabled or not, she was the favorite daughter, right? She was always pampered to and catered to, whilst Elphaba was always mistreated, at least by their father, because he's not her biological father, and he probably always suspected that her mother stepped out on him, which was the truth. She did, with the wizard, when the dad was away on a business trip or something, and so that's why Elphaba's skin is green, right? So anyway, this resulted in Nessa Rose growing up as the preferred daughter and always treated better than Elphaba. So then why, like, if she's treated so much better than Elphaba for her whole life, shouldn't she have compassion for Elphaba as her sister instead of the other way around? Like, why? Or is it because Nessa Rose has been spoiled her whole life, including by Elphaba, whether that was of her own volition or not? It was kind of like those were the roles that they pretty much fell into, right? Ever since they were little children. So I guess that carried we can see that that carried through to when they went to Shiz University, and then maybe I think Nessa Rose, maybe it's just a symptom of her being spoiled her whole life, so she doesn't really have the capacity to empathize as much with her sister Elphaba. Um, I mean, like that's just the most logical interpretation that I can come up with. But again, I feel like I'm grasping for straws because they gave us nothing. Gregory Maguire gave us nothing in terms of the actual development of the backstories of these characters. Like that's logical explanation. But at the end of the day, I don't know why Nessa Rose is such a horrible person. Or like, was he trying? Was it maybe again? It was the good, like no one is 100% good or 100% evil theme that he was expounding on with each character, because Nessa Rose is disabled, right? And we usually don't associate disabled or handicapped people as being evil or having undesirable character traits. Like, we usually, as a society, we are trained to regard disabled people as something to empathize with or to be pitied on, right? because they are handicapped, and so therefore it's like we automatically get this idea in our heads that, oh, they must be ostracized by society, they must have suffered so much, et cetera, which can be true. But it, maybe Gregory Maguire is trying to remind us that, yeah, but they can also still be just a horrible person, like separately of their physical handicap. So I don't know, but in any case, like Nessa Rose turns out to be a horrible person. And again, like the relationship between her and Bach, I don't understand. I mean, can somebody tell me, did do any of the relationships in this story remind you of any relationships that you've had in real life or couples that you know in real life? Because I cannot relate. I'm not trying to say that I'm above it all. Like I genuinely cannot relate. I found myself racking my brains throughout the entire movie or both of the movies to see, okay, like who do I know who's like Glinda, Fiero, and Elphaba. I don't really know any love triangles, to be honest, throughout my life. So I guess maybe I'm a little limited in that aspect because I grew up an only child, so it was relatively drama free, and I never had any like scandals in my family. Um, my entire middle school and high school career was very chaste because we just did not get down like that in my high school. And I think it was also the fact that my grade in high school kind of hated each other, or I don't know, maybe it was the fact that we were all born, most of us were born in Year of the Snake. So, like, we got along well enough by senior year, but we were not, I noticed right away that we were not as close as the other senior classes that came before us. Something like we all had a certain guardedness with us that we could never fully like let down our walls to each other. And I remember we tried in our senior year, right? Like we actually kind of tried to discuss this in person before, like when we tried to plan events, and we were talking amongst ourselves of, okay, we have to make memories, this is once in a lifetime, like we should try to plan events and get to know each other better and form like a bond as a senior class. But it never really gave um it never really gave like high school BFFs the way that the other seniors did before us. Anyway, this is not about my high school experience, but I didn't date in high school, and that was a large part of why. And like a lot of my friends also didn't date in high school, so I was exposed to like a lot less maybe of the typical relationship drama and dynamics that other people probably more commonly witnessed as they grew up. But even so, like Bach and Nessa Rose don't really make any sense at all to me. I understand Nessa Rose's sentiments towards Bach, like we see that a lot of somebody, or I don't know, maybe I guess you can also look at zoom out and just look at all of them. Like basically, they're all kind of in love with someone else in an unrequited way, at least, right? So Nessa Rose is in love with Bach. Bach is in love with Glinda. So yeah, Nessa Rose is in love with Bach, who regards her as only a good friend, and he only takes her to the ball out of pity. Also, because Glinda kind of manipulated him too by saying that she would see him as such a brave hero if he did that for her. So his intentions were not even pure with that, right? Because his intentions ultimately were still to impress Glinda. It wasn't even necessarily to be nice to Nessa Rose. And I think Nessa Rose could always kind of sense that. And maybe that's why she became gradually crueler and crueler to him in part two after she became mayor, and she holds more power now. So she exploited that power in order to keep him by her side, even though he was clearly unhappy and wanted to leave, and even voiced out loud as much to her at one point. But yeah, Bach at best only viewed her as a good friend. Meanwhile, his true love, or honmei, as they say in Japanese, was towards Glinda. So Glinda, in turn, doesn't even know Bach exists. She doesn't even get his name right for most of the first movie, and she's in love with Fiero, right? I don't know if she's in love with Fiero or more so in love with the idea of Fiero, but in any case, she's had her sights set on Fiero since day one. Like she's always wanted to saddle up and is that a term? couple up with him so that they can be that power couple throughout Oz. Meanwhile, Fiero is like, okay, I'll I guess I'll go with it because this is what is expected of me, but secretly he is developing like a true attraction and affection and admiration above all for Elphaba, right? After she especially I think their first bonding moment came when there was that sleeping spell cast on the class and Elphaba took the little caged baby lion cub out into the forest because she wanted to save it, who later became the cowardly lion, right? Who also um, was in that march of the witch hunters because he was like, from his perspective, Alphaba ruined his life by basically fighting his battles for him so that he was never able to face them on his own and therefore never able to develop courage. That's why he's the cowardly lion, even in adulthood. So, like, basically, every time Alpha tries to help people, it turns out badly or it backfires on her. And that's, I guess, the theme of the song No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. And so I think at one point, I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think at one point Elphaba declares that she's never gonna try to do anything good again because it always results in like pain and destruction for other people. And like I wouldn't say that that's the takeaway that she should have come to. It's more so like don't think before you interfere, right? I don't think the lesson should be just okay, don't try to do any good, don't try to correct any wrongs whatsoever. It's more just like understand the system that you're living in and the powers that play first before you take action is a good message that you could take from this film. But yeah, to finish the love pentagon or whatever, I don't know how many people are involved. But so Fiero is secretly in love with Elphaba. And I guess like Fiero and Elphaba ultimately end up to be the only couple that fully like reciprocates each other's love to each other. Yeah. I will say, so the actress who played Nessa Rose, I was very impressed by her as well, even though she had possibly even a smaller role than Bach in this film. But that one scene where she screams out Bach's name in anguish, that was very impressive to me because to make a name like Bach sound truly anguish filled is no small feat. Okay, try it. Like Bach. Come on, that sounds stupid, but she did it in a way where I truly felt like it was a gut wrenching scream or a call out for him. And you could tell that like her heart was breaking in that moment. So I was like, whoa, you have some talent, girl, because you were able to make that name like actually pull out the feels in me and pull at my heartstrings. So yeah, I don't understand this story. Like I tried to get into it. I liked okay, so it was a very epic movie. I was very impressed by I guess my favorite scene, which was also one of the scariest scenes, was when Elphaba was trying to save Fiero. Because she knew that he had gotten captured by the guards and she wasn't sure what they were going to do to him, but she assumed the worst, that they were probably going to beat him to death. And so immediately she like runs to Grimmery and tries to find a spell and immediately gets to work casting a spell trying to save him from losing his life, right? Which and she ultimately turns him into the scarecrow, of course. But like while she's doing it, you can feel the tension and the anguish. And at one point during the song, she's even like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm saying these words right, but like, Fiero, where are you? Are you bleeding? Are you even breathing still? But yeah, ultimately, of course, we know he does live. And I don't understand. Okay, so the water thing with Dorothy, like when she stages her own death of melting by the bucket of water that Dorothy pours on her, but instead of actually melting, she just kind of hides under a trapdoor, like under the floor. And then Glinda is in the closet watching all of this, right? And she's like breaking down because she also thinks that Elphaba is actually dying or sacrificing herself. So that part I also don't understand because like doesn't Glinda know that water doesn't actually kill witches? Didn't they go to college together? Like weren't they roommates? So surely they ate food and drank water and surely like surely she's seen Elphaba ingest water many, many times throughout the years, unless they don't eat. I don't know. Come to think of it, they don't really show them ever in a cafeteria or anything eating. But I don't understand that part. Like, was she actually supposed to melt when water was thrown on her, or was that just another tall tale, another myth? Because I always got the impression that that was just like a myth amongst the many, many falsities that all of the townspeople and the collective belief, like the propaganda that was levied against Elphaba by Morrible and the wizard. I always thought that the melting by water thing was just another like exaggeration, fictional aspect that they made up to make her seem even more of a witch, or to reduce her even more of her humanity and her proximity to them as like a caring, conscious person. Yeah, that part didn't make sense to me. It also didn't make sense to me how Glinda eventually banishes Madame Morrible away from the city of Oz, and then she's like, "Yeah, you better take." She banishes Madame Morrible first, and then she goes down to the wizard's lair, and she's like, "You better leave town now too." And I'm like, "Okay, good, yay, Glinda. We stand a self-aware queen who's trying to correct her wrongs." But like, where did she get that power though? I don't understand. Like, why is Madame Morrible all of a sudden afraid of Glinda? I don't understand, where did the power flip? That part was not clear to me. So maybe I need to read the original book or the watch the original musical, although I'm not going to do that though cuz again, I don't I'm not particularly interested in this story. It was a fun movie though. It was fun. I don't like how and there was no wrap up with Dr. Dillman's story either. Like I felt really heartbroken during that scene where Elphaba, she makes a deal with the wizard for him to release the flying monkeys, which he does, but then it leads Elphaba to find another cellar, like underground, where all of the animals are captured and kept in cages. And then she like rushes up to Dr. Dillman and asks him if he can still speak, and he just lets out this very defeated, sad goat sound. What sound do goats make? Like yeet. Do goats say yeet? Is that where that comes from? What sound does a goat make? Bleat, bleat. Like nah. Yeah, so he does that, but it's a lot sadder, and I almost cried when I saw Dr. Dillman, but then we never get to see him like talk again or get restored to his professor status. Or is there a scene at the end where he's teaching again? I don't even know. Like what happened? This is why I feel like I want a part 3 at this point. I know that wicked purists are probably against it, but I want a part 3 just because I feel so unsettled. I feel like nothing was resolved. And yeah, I don't understand how Glinda could really be convinced that both Elphaba and Fiero are not alive. I don't think Glinda believes that they're both dead. I think Glinda knows that, at least like for now or for many, many years, she cannot occupy the same physical space as them, without causing, arousing suspicion in the townspeople and whatnot. But yeah, I don't understand how she got rid of Morrible and Wizard, because she herself, it's not like she developed magical powers or anything during that time. So why was Morrible so afraid of her at the end? Because like up until then, Morrible was the one pulling the puppet strings, right? And there was even a scene where Glinda tries to confront Madame Morrible, but you can tell she's saying it in a very timid voice. Like she knows that Morrible is not going to be happy with her, but when Madame Morrible conjures up that tornado to drop a house, which turned out to be Dorothy's house, onto Nessa Rose, um, ultimately killing her because she knew that that would draw Elphaba's attention and allure her to the place that they wanted to bring her, right? Because they were like, and then she used Glinda as well to go to the scene of the crime or like the accident, so to speak. Um, but like, okay, so that part was pre-planned. Like Glinda was in cahoots with Madame Morrible, or she was following Madame Morrible's plan to go to the site of Nessa Rose's death before Elphaba so that they could both have a standoff, right? But then you're telling me that Glinda was too stupid at that point to even realize that all of this was premeditated by Madame Morrible. I think when Glinda went to the house that fell on Nessa Rose and like after Nessa Rose had already perished, I think at that point Glinda was still naively or perhaps delusionally, like maybe she was still in denial and she still thought that it was an accident somehow. But then Elphaba is like, "Wake up, Glinda! Do you really think that the what are the chances that a tornado just happens to lift up a house that is like big enough to land directly on and kill my sister? This was definitely, the nefarious, deliberate doing of somebody's witchcraft, right?" And then Elphaba already knows that this is Miss Madame Morrible's doing, but Glinda is like, oh, she doesn't realize until Elphaba says that to her, and then she tries to confront Madame Morrible about it, and she tries to ask her, like, hey, that day when you changed the weather and conjured up the tornado, did you purposely try to, like, she's not even able to get the words out before Madame Morrible is like, basically, shut up, girl, sit down, didn't isn't this what you wanted? You wanted to be a celebrity that was adored. So play your part and shut the fuck up. Is basically what Madame Morrible said. So I don't understand how the power switched from Madame Morrible's hands to Glinda by the end. Maybe I would understand more if I knew the original story, but yeah. I'm not moved by this story whatsoever. I don't know, like I think the part that bothers me the most is the relationships. They just make no sense to me. They just feel like um so obviously written by a man that doesn't understand the nuance of, I don't know, female relationships. Cuz now that I think about it, I can understand like all of the love feelings or all of the experience of relationships through a male character's eyes. It makes sense to me, right? Because like men are pretty simplistic when it comes to relationships and romantic dalliances and whatnot. So like it makes sense to me that, Bach and Fiyero um are kind of passive and they just kind of go with the girl that is available to them, or like, the best option that's available to them at the time. So that's why Bach stays with Nessa Rose for so long. Ooh, am I still online? Oh wait, no, that was my mouse. So yeah, that's why Bach stays with Nessa Rose, even though he has never loved her like that and never will. And Nessa Rose knows it, but she also realizes that Bach is weak, and then she has the power as mayor to keep him by her side. So she wields it because she doesn't want to. She cares more about, being with him than his own happiness. And then like Fiyero too, right? He's very like wishy-washy and kind of a coward. Like they're both cowards to me. I mean, again, the theme is that no one is purely good or bad in this story. So that part checks out. But yeah, Fiyero, I can see how guys would do something sloppy like that, like go from one sister to another. But from the women's perspective, I don't understand it. I'm sorry, I don't buy the relationship dynamics. I don't buy that Elphaba is willing to just step in and continue to save her horrible sister who did nothing but bully her and treat her with contempt throughout their whole childhood and adulthood. Even after Elphaba tried to help her at college, Nessa Rose would like push her away and say that she was embarrassing her or something, right? Because she didn't even want other people to. She didn't want too much attention to be drawn to the fact that she was related to Elphaba even. So like why was Elphaba still so devoted to her as a sister? I don't understand. Or like half sister technically. And also like Glinda and Elphaba just kind of ignoring the fact that they're in a triangle, love triangle with Fiyero, um, and forgiving each other quickly, or like Glinda forgiving Elphaba and Fiyero super quickly after they essentially sleep together, even though he's technically married to Glinda still. That would not happen in real life. I don't think so. Not that this is supposed to be a realistic story or anything, but it's not a believable relationship dynamic or arc to me whatsoever. I have similar thoughts about, ironically, another love triangle that Jonathan Bailey plays a character in that was part of Bridgerton season 2, Kate and Anthony and her sister, right? Kate's sister. So like the fact that, yeah, like I didn't think that that love story was well written either. The fact that Kate and Anthony obviously started developing feelings for each other since the first day that they met, but then quickly Kate decides to pawn him off on her sister, because I don't remember the logistics, but apparently in that Regency area, it would have been advantageous. Like it would have been a good look for the Sharma family if Anthony married the younger sister. Like for some reason, not Kate. Oh, I guess because Kate was like adopted from another family, but her sister holds the true title of their bloodline. So if her sister marries Anthony, then it would be like a strong alliance in that society. But anyway, so like obviously it doesn't work out because and Kate's sister is oblivious throughout the entirety of Anthony's courtship of her, that he and Kate are actually building up in their chemistry towards each other, until the actual wedding day where Kate's sister, I forgot her name. What's her name? Kate's sister finally notices like a glance or something between Anthony and Kate. And I think Kate's bracelet drops, and then Anthony rushes to kneel down and pick it up for her. And it was in that moment that Kate's sister realized that, oh my God, these two are actually in love with each other. But then it's all wrapped up in a pretty bow in the end, because Kate's sister was never actually truly in love with Anthony in the first place. So therefore, that's why she's able to forgive them and give them her blessing. Like again, no, in no reality is that happening. So you're telling me that this guy was courting you for several months, and it has escalated to the point where you two are supposed to be married in holy matrimony, which is like a very big deal. And even though you didn't feel anything for him or didn't see him romantically in the beginning, you're telling me that after like months and months of intense deliberate courting, that you don't feel something towards him by the time that you walk down the aisle, to the point where you're able to forgive your sister after discovering that actually she has been in love with your fiance all along behind your back. And like that's why your wedding was thwarted and failed, and not to mention humiliated you in front of their entire society. So yeah, I don't understand. I don't buy that story at all. But even as I say that, if you ask me how would I write these storylines differently, I couldn't tell you. That's why I'm not a screenwriter. Anyway, I think I have said all my thoughts on Wicked. Everything about this movie is so weird, even Ethan Slater and Ariana Grande in person too, like the fact that the way that they both got with each other so quickly, after divorcing their spouses, or I don't we don't know. I mean, the official story that they told us was that they both separated at least from their spouses first before hooking up with each other. But if you've read the essay that Ethan Slater's ex-wife wrote, you'll know that from her perspective, it was definitely she was blindsided. She definitely did not consider their marriage to be on the rocks or anywhere near over by the time that um, he just announced out of the blue that he was leaving her for Ariana Grande. So I don't know about that. I find it really fascinating, actually, that they managed to somehow avoid talking about that. Or no, I mean, I know how they avoided talking about it. It's because they have really, really skilled publicists and PR teams that are on it, and I'm sure that there were rules for the whole press tour. Like you barely see Ariana and Ethan Slater um, in the same room together or interviewing together, and I think that was intentional. So they kept their respective PR teams definitely deliberately kept them apart towards the press tour so that there would be like minimal chance of getting any paparazzi pictures of them snuggling up to each other or whatnot. But still, like the scandal broke though fairly early in the whole Wicked um release timeline. Like we already knew about the scandal. I think we knew before the first film even released, right? That Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater were in a relationship with each other after basically cheating on each other with basically cheating on their spouses with each other. I think that was before the first film released, and yet somehow they have both escaped scrutiny up until now. Even after Ethan Slater's ex-wife detailed very heartbreakingly in her essay about how it was just like such a strange situation that she felt she was thrown in, and she never in a million years um imagined that she would have to like basically face and be bombarded with all these images and all this press about a movie that represented some of the darkest times of her life. Like, yeah, if you have time, go read her essay. It's called How Does My Marriage Make You Feel? Because she's an actual psychiatrist or psychologist. I think psychiatrist. Like she has a doctorate in real life, and her profession is to psychoanalyze or give therapy to people. So, you know how therapists always ask, like, how does this make you feel? How does that make you feel? So that's how she titled her essay, which was very clever. Like, how does my divorce make you feel? She's like staying true to her profession, even though obviously, like, it's a really, really well written piece because you can tell that she's devastated, but she's approaching this in a way that like she doesn't want to put any emotional burden on her patients because she talks about how in her practice it's very important to not taint the patient therapist relationship with any like personal burdens or emotional burdens on the therapist's part. They are at the end of the day providing a service to their patients, and so I thought that was really really clever the way that she structured her whole essay. But like she basically told us without telling us in explicit terms how this was completely devastating and just like a blow out of thin air for her. The fact that, as you can imagine, it would be for your husband to like automatic to randomly up and leave you for a pop star. But yeah, I think anyway, that's another that's another conversation. I was gonna say it's a cautionary tale to not get married young or to definitely assess the compatibility of the compatibility. Why did I sound southern right there? But definitely you have to like assess and really take seriously the compatibility of your lifestyle and values and all the things before you decide to make somebody your future spouse. Because she talked about how like even much earlier in their courtship, Ethan has always been an actor, right? I think he used to be SpongeBob, if I'm not mistaken, on some stage musical or something. So he's no stranger to musicals. But the fact that like she is a psychiatrist, so her she's super private, and she also said that just in her personal life as well, she never uses social media. She's a super private person, like super serious, studious, has her PhD, whereas Ethan Slater has always been like the artistic one, the actor, the one whose career actually requires him to have a social media presence, and it requires him to be in the public eye. So she like addresses directly in the essay that, yeah, this was, kind of a point of concern ever since the beginning of our marriage. So let this be a lesson to you ladies out there. If you're not married yet, don't gloss over these things, okay? Don't gloss over a very, the likeliness of the incompatibility of lifestyles with your future partner, because as we're shown time and time again, love is definitely not enough in this world. You have to consider a host of other factors. Okay, finances, shared values is a huge one. But yeah, even now we know from this example, even just lifestyles, right? If you two fundamentally live different lifestyles that kind of clash with each other, it's more than likely going to be a recipe for a disaster in the future. No matter how much you think you love each other and you can weather the storm, if it's not compatible, it's not compatible, right? So anyway, I just think it's wild the way that Ariana Grande manages to evade criticism. Because I'm not saying that it's all like her fault. I think they're both equally at fault in this scenario, because it's kind of an interesting or a rare case where both of them actually left their spouses for each other. So they both did like an equally shitty thing, but Ariana's the bigger star, right? Because no one even knew Ethan Slater's name before her. Although now I know his name because of that scene as the Tin Man from Wicked 2. So I do have to give him props for that scene. I'm sorry. I think Ethan Slater was gave the strongest performance in Wicked 2. I would even go as far as to say that he deserves an Oscar for his performance. But the only reason that, I mean, there's no way he would get nominated for that because the role was too small. But if the role was expanded for Bach, and like I don't know if there's a Wicked 3 and he has a meteor storyline, I definitely would like to see more of his portrayal of the Tin Man, because I thought he was excellent. But yeah, really, really weird to know that him and Ariana are dating. Like, I wonder how it feels to, you know, obviously, if you're willing to leave your spouse for someone, you must feel very strongly about them. This goes for both of them, right? But then on the other hand, it's like it's such a bad look for them, and it's so bad for both of their reputations that they can never fully express their love in public now. Like they have to be completely private and low key now, because like anytime they can you imagine if they just went out on a regular date and were kissing up on each other and smiling for the cameras, there would be a bloodbath, people would rip them to shreds every single time that they went to public. So they can't even be public about their love now. Is it worth it? Is it worth betraying or cheating on your former spouse in order to get with your new love, if the condition is that now you can never be public with it, or the public will never be on your side, at least, even if you decide to throw caution to the wind and say, F it, we're just going to be open with it. Because you see, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, right? Although I don't know if that was necessarily a cheating situation, or I think it was also a messy, oh my God, I have to sneeze. Ah, I can never sneeze with people in the room, whether online, whether virtually or in person. But anyway, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, I think Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, I think it was a similar story that they tried to spin. We'll never know the true timeline, because they would never reveal that to the public. But I think the story is that he and Mackenzie were separated already by the time that he was dating Lauren. So it wasn't infidelity per se. But regardless, people always think of Lauren Sanchez as a Jezebel just because of who she is and how she presents, and she dresses very sexy. Um, and also like their lavish wedding in Venice, people were not happy with that. So people are always going to have something bad to say about Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez when they step out, but it seems that they are opting to go for the route of okay, we're not hiding our love, you know? Like whatever bullets or criticism comes our way, we'll take it cuz like we're still going to live life and express our love on our own terms. That's the vibe I get from Jeff and Lauren. Also, they are billionaires, right? Ariana and Ethan are below Jeff and Lauren. Like they're just entertainers at the end of the day, right? So entertainers occupy a lower class than the elites that run this world. As we all, you know, found out, some of us have already known this, but it's clear now, it's undeniable with the release of the e-files and everything. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say at this point. I just think it's wild how Ariana always manages to evade criticism. Like she has some diehard fans for sure. And she has talent, so that does count for something. But I also remember like she released this song, The Boy Is Mine, somewhere between like somewhere around the time that Wicked One came out. And I thought that was wild as well too, because she's basically like I don't know when the song was made. So if it was made a lot earlier, then it couldn't possibly have been directed at Ethan Slater's wife. But the optics make it look like she put out a song like after it came out that she was Ethan Slater. Doesn't it look like she put out a song to taunt his ex-wife by saying that the boy is mine? I don't know. That song is kind of a banger, but I just think it's so weird. Like, how does she get away with all of this? Or do people just not care? Do people just give her a pass because she's Ariana? Because, you know, she also had kind of like a traumatic childhood. She got her start with Nickelodeon, right? So we know everything weird that's been coming out about Dan. What's his name? Dan Schneider at Nickelodeon. And he put her in like really weird, compromising scenes when she was still a minor in the Nickelodeon shows. So I don't know what type of like abuse or treatment that she experienced on the set of Nickelodeon. She's never spoken about it publicly. There's been other young or former Nickelodeon stars that have spoken out about Dan Schneider's abuse of minors on set and just like the uncomfortable situations that he put them in. He put a lot of like feet fetish material in all over these children's shows that he directed. So it was a very, very strange time. And I think people have sympathy for Ariana because like they've grown up with her. So now after like learning about all of the injustices that the child stars of Nickelodeon suffered at the hands of Dan Schneider, even though Ariana seems to have been spared more than the other kids because she was the bigger star, even way back when. But I think like knowing all of this about her background, that's what makes people have a soft spot for her. And like I'll admit, I personally I don't find her to be I don't look at her to be this Jezebel like home wrecking figure. Although is that just the Glinda effect though? Maybe. Maybe she needs to be regarded more harshly, but it's weird to me how like some people are just able to do whatever they want and not suffer consequences and like not even suffer the baptism by fire of social media cancellation, whereas other people they can literally say one wrong thing. Timothy Chalamet with his little arrogant comments about opera and ballet, but were they bad enough for him to be completely canceled and like his Oscar nomination or his Oscar chances ripped out from underneath him? You see what I'm saying? Like Timothy Chalamet, okay, seems like he's been exposed for being a typical douchey frat boy type, but is that like did he home wreck somebody's marriage? Did he essay someone? Like, am I missing something here? Who did Timothy Chalamet piss off? That's the only thing that kept playing through my mind whenever whenever I heard more developments about the story of him shitting on ballet and opera essentially. And then like everyone kept dogpiling on him, including other celebrities and the actual, national ballet and opera houses. They were like trolling him and using his name as a discount for their tickets to, they were capitalizing on the moment as they should to get more people to buy tickets to see ballet and opera in person. Because I think it's not that people don't support it, but they just it's very expensive to go to opera and ballet, and especially in this economy, a lot of people just don't have the extra disposable income, right? To see like a live classical performance like that. But yeah, like, did Timothy Chalamet deserve that much ire, or is it because somebody in Hollywood is sick of him? Is it because okay, so a lot of people are saying that it's because of his association with the Kardashian Jenners now. Like after they're saying that after he started dating Kylie Kardashian, or no, Kylie Jenner, that's when his stock started to plummet, right? And I don't disagree. Some people are pushing back saying that you shouldn't like they're tired of women always being blamed for men's downfalls. Like some people are doubling down and saying that no, Timothy caused his own downfall. It has nothing to do with Kylie. Like, okay, I admit that Kylie should not be criticized for anything that happens in his career, but I think um I agree with the fact that maybe just him associating his name with the Kardashians in general, I wouldn't find it to be too far of a stretch to say that that kind of either pissed off somebody, one of the higher ups in Hollywood, or they just decided, okay, his name has now been sullied because he's associated himself with a reality show family. And so that's why like we can no longer consider him to be our golden boy, right? Because he was on a very, very sharp rising trajectory before that. He was projected to be like one of the youngest Oscar winners, all of that. Congratulations to Michael B. Jordan, by the way. He's from New Jersey originally, which is where I went to middle school and high school. But yeah, I think okay, it reminds me of when Anna Wintour finally had to fold and allow Kim Kardashian to be on the cover of Vogue after she got with Kanye, right? Because remember, Kim Kardashian had been trying to get on Vogue for years and years, decades even, and Anna Wintour had always maintained that Vogue was a high fashion magazine. So like she always resisted, but then once Kim got with Kanye, that pairing kind of like supernovaed her status to where Anna Wintour could no longer ignore her influence in culture. And she finally, I think, invited either Kim or Kanye, both of them. I don't know. I think at this point they've been on Vogue covers several times over. But yeah, like Anna Wintour finally had to um, pivot the strategy and allow the likes of Kim Kardashian onto Vogue covers. So now it's a normal thing now for celebrities to be featured in Vogue, but it didn't used to be like that, back in the height of haute couture, like the 90s and the 2000s. But after the Kim Kardashian issue, I think that's what kind of changed like the advertising strategy of fashion, or Vogue at least. So I feel like Hollywood execs, maybe some Hollywood higher up out there, saw this pattern or like saw this happen at Vogue or with fashion with regards to Kim Kardashian and Kanye, and maybe they're hell bent on preventing that from happening in Hollywood. Maybe they're like, okay, Vogue might have finally fallen down or been beaten down by this family, but Hollywood, no, no, we are not going to give the Kardashians an inch, no matter what, even if it means taking out our golden boy. That's my conspiracy theory. So with that, I will leave you um yeah, to enjoy the rest of your day or your evening. Thank you for listening to me yap as usual. Let me know what you thought about Wicked 2 or the whole Wicked story in general. Again, I cannot reiterate enough how much I dislike these characters. I don't empathize with them. I like the world of Oz. I like the animals. Um, I like the commentary on how like perception is everything and propaganda is a tool that can be used to make scapegoats out of people and make martyrs as well as heroes out of people out of a necessity or perceived necessity to give the people a tangible heroine and a tangible villain, but the reality behind the scenes is much more complicated. I can appreciate the lesson of how your pure intentions don't necessarily matter in the end if it results in you taking actions that ultimately cause destruction or pain in other people's lives. Even if those people end up forgiving you in the end, it's still like the damage has been done because you cannot reverse the perception of yourself as somebody who is reckless or makes mistakes or is reckless with other people's lives. So that's what happened with Elphaba. We as we see played out in so many scenarios in the two movies. I also okay, I don't understand why, like I mean, I understand why, right? Like I yeah, okay, whatever directional choices that John Chu made, those were her choices. Those were his choices. I'm sure he had his reasons, but like there were so many scenes in Wicked 2 that I felt like we were for whatever reason, like we as an audience were not privy to the full scale of like what was happening. So for example, when Elphaba was turning Bach into a tin man in order to save his life, because Nessa Rose tried to cast a love spell on him, which was basically putting his heart in danger. So since you can't reverse any spell in the Grimoire, and since Nessa Rose doesn't know what she's doing, she thought she was making heart making Bach in love with her and like binding his heart to hers or something, but in actuality she was damaging his heart and putting his life in danger. So in order to like combat that, Elphaba had to think quick on her feet and do something else, right? Like transform and in order to save Bach's life. So the only thing she could think of in the moment was to turn him into a tin man. But like we only see like bits and pieces, flashes of what happened to actually turn him into the tin man because the our perspective is with Nessa Rose the entire time. Like she puts Elphaba pushes Nessa Rose outside of the room and like locks the doors so that she can, concentrate fully on trying to save Bach. So we are out there with Nessa Rose, kind of like biting our fingernails and waiting and hoping and praying for Elphaba to succeed in saving Bach. So as a result, like we don't see the full transformation of Bach into the Tin Man, and I'm just like, okay, but why though? What's the point of that though? Is it too gruesome? Or like what's the point of giving us Nessa Rose's perspective? I don't really care about seeing things through this bitch's eyes, you know? Like she's already proven herself to be a pretty despicable, irredeemable character. By the way that by the way that she treats Bach, who she's supposedly in love with. Like you don't if you actually love somebody, you don't treat them that way, right? And then the same thing with Elphaba, who is her sister, who she expects all the loyalty and help from Elphaba, but then in return, it's not like she's ever done anything to help clear Elphaba's name in Oz or anything like that. So, yeah, there was that, and then also like the scene where Dorothy pours water supposedly onto Elphaba, but then Glinda is watching from behind, from inside a closet, and I'm just like, okay, that one I can understand because Glinda is the main character, so and it's also in line with the original, I guess, scene from Wizard of Oz. So that one I can understand, but I don't know. I, it was weird, and like again, I just felt the large musical numbers, like the one where Glinda and Fiyero get engaged, and Glinda is basically singing about how she couldn't be happier, and it just kept panning, and it just kept like zooming in and out and panning over all of the townspeople, but there was no organization. Like it just felt very messy and like okay, people were doing choreography, but we don't get any nice clear shots of synchronized choreography, even though that's what they were doing. But like the choice of the framing was very messy. It wasn't really giving us, I don't know, it wasn't really stylistic in any way. And like the lighting was weird, a lot of the characters were backlit in a lot of the scenes. So I don't know. I'm not a director, okay, so I can't speak too much on it, but I must say that it just felt off in some areas. Like the angle choices of the shots and what John Chu actually decided to put in the shots, and like the lack of variety of the shots throughout the musical sequences. Very, very strange. But yeah, that's all I have on Wicked. And as you can see, I have no merch because I truly do not care about this franchise. Although I will, if they come out with a Wicked 3, I will watch it because I feel uncomfortable. I feel unsatisfied with this conclusion. I feel like they didn't give us anything really. Like, okay, so Madame Morrible and the Wizard of Oz are gone now. So it's just Glinda left to rule all of Oz by herself. Is she gonna be happy by herself? I guess it's what she needs. Glinda definitely needs to learn how to stand on her own 2 feet, so that's fine. But then Elphaba and Fiero venture outside of Oz now because they're not on the run, right? They're essentially fugitives, and apparently it's just an endless desert outside of Oz. So is Oz actually the UAE? Like, is Oz actually Dubai? Ooh, that could be a new analogy. I don't think I've heard anyone compare Oz to Dubai so far, but I could be the first. Because I could definitely see Oz as being an analogy for Dubai, especially with everything that's going on right now with the whole missile situation. But anyway, I'll catch you guys later. I need to go to sleep. And I don't want any weird dreams about flying monkeys or wizards, okay? After I sign off this live. No, leave me alone.